Welcome back, week number 444. I'm so glad to have you back and in your life group and going through this Jesus be, think about that, Jesus be the bread of life, and working through these other ones, Jesus be the light of my world, exposing things, and today is Jesus be the door. Jesus pretty clearly says, I am the door. And that sounds like, you can think of a lot of things with that, and and it talks about the sheep going into it. But I just want you to, like I said before, all these passages that Jesus is referring to actually kind of lines up with the Exodus of the Israelites passing through into the Promised Land. And we talked about the manna, and we talked about the pillar of fire, and now we're talking about the door, which is actually, refers to. Jesus here saying is actually the Passover. When God told the Israelites to put the blood on the doors, and if you did this, that he would save that house. And so, and then it was that Passover that it was like that blocking, that covering. When you think about it, that on the doorposts, and the blood, if the blood was there on that doorpost, that means that judgment would pass over it, that they would just move on to the next one. The salvation came through that doorway, that entrance. And so the door was kind of like the line between life and death. And it wasn't like, multiple doors, there's that one entrance in and out. And Jesus kind of builds on this by saying, I am the door. Referring to the Passover, and he says, I am the door. And but now he's saying of himself, looking back at that sacrifice of the blood that was spilt, and Jesus gave himself, and his blood was spilled, and he gave his life, and he's saying, and they may not even know as he was saying this what he was referring to, but he's looking back at the Passover saying, my blood was spilled. My blood covered it. My blood is taking care of that. It's interesting because salvation now comes through not just the doorway of blood, it comes through a person of Jesus Christ. It comes through him, and entry into God's presence comes from Christ alone. We can come into God's presence because of what Jesus did. We can enter in, that now Jesus does become this doorway, that Jesus becomes a way for us to enter into the presence, to enter into freedom, to enter into what God has for us. Because of what the work on the cross, because of the blood on the cross, we can now enter in. And doors typically do two things. Two things doors do. One, doors is, it provides access, which we do because we can enter in, but they also provide protection. You lock your doors, you protect your doors. And what's cool is that Jesus is pretty much saying, I am the great I am. I am your access, and I am your protection for life. It lets the right things in, and it keeps the other things out. And I love it when you go to Revelation, it says, I stand at the door even and knock. It's interesting. He is the only way. Like I said on Sunday, he's the only way, and the one who stands at the door, he is the door. There's only one way to enter in. There's only one way to enter salvation. There's only one way to enter, and that's through the door. That's through Jesus Christ. And we get to enter in, not because even what we did, we get to enter in because of what he did. So there's a few questions we just want you to discuss within your group. But even think about that for yourself. What does it mean that what Jesus did, now you can enter in? You can go ahead and ask these questions within your own group.